Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. Liz Trotter is on special assignment today, but I am with Dan Fleisher, and this is Smart Business Moves. Hey, Dan, how in the world are you?
I am good. I like knowing that Liz is on special assignment. I'm thinking of the cool special assignment she's on right now. It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, she'll have to report next week.
Yeah, we'll get the full detail later.
It's a pleasure having you here, though. I don't think that we've ever really met, have we?
No, not until today, which is both exciting, so we get to meet and talk, and also probably a little wrong because we haven't met yet. But better late than never.
Well, it's kind of the way we roll around here. This isn't unusual for us, so
Yeah,
it'll be good. We'll get to know each other and share some information. It'll be useful too. Some house cleaning businesses all at the same time. So you are co-founder and chief operating officer of HireBus. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, of course. Co-founder, chief operating officer of HireBus. What does that mean? So basically, what that means is about 2 years ago, a little longer than that, my business partner and I were helping coach thousands of home service businesses, many cleaning businesses, both maid service, home service, exterior cleaning businesses. And we noticed that the winners were the ones that had a good system for hiring and retaining talent, and the ones that were living a really hard, difficult, up and down entrepreneur life were the ones that were getting lucky with some hires and not getting lucky with others. And so we said, there's got to be a way to build a system for this. There's systems for marketing, there's systems for production, there's systems for sales. How can we create a system for people? And so that's what we set out to do in HireBus. And I don't want to go like too deep into the product itself, but I'd love to share like what we've learned just from helping hire thousands and thousands of folks in the trades. So hopefully it can help some of the members of the audience here.
And just for the benefit of the audience, you mentioned your co-founder. That's Brandon Vaughn. I mean, he's a celebrity. Everybody knows Brandon. He's from Conquer, and I don't know. I see him like in social media. Isn't he like doing some things with garage floors now?
Yeah, he started. It was pretty cool. Started as a project to kind of to prove that he could do it. He built a garage floor coatings company without doing any sales calls, without doing any production, with no arms and no legs, to prove that with systems and the right people, you can build a really strong business. And he's got over 37 locations nationwide, and it's really successful. And he recorded it on YouTube. You can check it out. It's mapped to 1 million, and you can see the YouTube series where he documented standing up that business. And yeah, Brandon's been an awesome person to partner with. We worked together at Conquer. We obviously started this together, and he's just not only very dynamic and very skilled and very smart, but he's super giving. Like, he's always answering questions, always trying to help out. So I'm super lucky to be able to work with and build stuff with him.
Wow. So how long have y'all been working on HireBus?
So we started HireBus a little, just over a year and a half ago. And it's been a really interesting journey to build processes that help bring people in to service businesses specifically. I'll share a few of our learnings that hopefully will help everyone. When we first started the business, we didn't have any specific hiring processes other than a behavioral assessment. So what does that mean? Well, our whole thesis to start this was, in the trades, if you have the right behaviors for a role, you're going to be successful. So specifically in home cleaning business, we took data from who were the top performing cleaning technicians, and we had them take our assessment, and we ran regressions on who were the top performing based on their behaviors. And we built a benchmark. So when people applied, we could say, based on the data, these technicians, regardless of resume, years experience, other factors, will perform well. Are they detail oriented? Can they handle flexibility, or do they like routine tasks, right? Those are some of the types of behaviors that our assessment would learn.
So you designed this assessment yourselves, or you and your team did?
So actually we purchased the IP of an existing behavioral assessment. And then what we did is we took millions of data points and refined the benchmarks in the assessment. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. We had a science-backed, research-backed assessment that was used by Fortune 500 companies, large companies, but then we trained it with data from the trades.
Yeah, I'd like to take just a minute and drill on that a little bit because I think that's important. I know a lot of people will like roll their own assessment, but there's a lot of science and statistical validation. And if you're using assessments that you just kind of made up and doing it on scale, I mean, there's EEOC issues, there's all kinds
Yep.
of stuff that if you're not, if you're running a house cleaning business or any type of home service business, you want to make sure that any assessments you're using for hiring purposes are statistically valid and could stand up if somebody says that they are that it's biased in some way and I'm not being treated fairly.
100%, 100%. And some of the things that are, well, first of all, the assessment in a hiring process is one data point, right? Like, I don't want to pretend that you can take a 10-minute assessment and it can capture all of who you are as a human. It's one piece of data point. Is it an important piece? Yes. But second, the validity piece in using statistical analysis to determine what a benchmark is actually leads to really surprising results. So I'll give you a concrete example, Tom. One of the things that we measure in our assessment measures 21 behavioral scales. One of them is order, right? Order is one of them. And for a lead cleaning tech, you would imagine that it's better to be higher in order. You need to follow a checklist. You need to be organized. You need to be able to communicate with clients if they're home, right? Like, you would imagine that you would just want everyone to be max order. Actually, what we found in the data is you want someone that's moderate to high order, but if someone is so high order that they can't work in a complex world, or they can't handle change, or they can't handle something coming their way that's unexpected, then actually the data shows that they can't perform. And
It's the adaptability part of it, I guess.
Exactly. And there's a double-edged sword to all of these behaviors. And so when you run regressions and look at the data, actually it's pretty rare that someone who operates in the extremes works well. Yet when we create assessments ourselves, it's a lot of yes/no questions, a lot of binary questions, which tailors and tends to work well with extremes. So to your point earlier around like using millions of points of data versus creating things ourselves, there's a lot of value there because the world's a little bit more gray than black and white often.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the questions that the assessment asks, they're not yes or no. I mean, how would it determine if how somebody rates on the scale of order?
It's pretty cool. So the assessment actually only asks one question. Yeah, surprising.
A one question assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It says the question is, describe how you often behave. And the assessment's based off a clinical psychology assessment called the adjectives assessment. It's obviously been adapted multiple times and normed with different data, but it asks, describe how you often behave. And then there's a list of adjectives that respondents select. And based on those adjectives, you can select as many as you want. And depending on the adjectives you select, the time that it takes you, the order that you select them in, et cetera, it'll rate you on 21 behavioral scales. And there's no like good or bad. It's just if you score high or low, and high does not mean good, low does not mean bad. We'll use order as an example. If you score high in order, you are often driven or compelled to work in a more orderly fashion. Where if you score lower in order, you might feel constricted by order. And so you can imagine, think of all of our entrepreneurial selves. There's times where it's better to behave high in order when I'm building SOPs or training new technicians. There's times where it might make sense to behave a little bit lower in order when, someone's out sick and I don't have that SOP.
Right.
What do I do? Because I got to deliver for my client. I got to be able to operate in that uncertainty. So what's cool about the assessment, it helps you understand how you often behave and then who might fit in specific roles better based on those scales.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about how this process works. If I'm, our audience is primarily running house cleaning companies.
Yeah.
So, what do we need to know? Obviously, hiring and selecting the right people and building a workforce is one of the biggest challenges we have.
Mhm.
What can you share with us that would help us in that regard?
It's all about having a system. And sure, HireBus, I'll put HireBus aside. You could HireBus as a hiring system, but frankly, all I care about is that you have a system that's repeatable, that's always on, that's systematized in your hiring. And I've seen incredible systems from people using a number of software products to people building out really good Google Forms and Zaps that work. And if it works for you and it's repeatable and brings in good people, that's what matters. So let's talk about the system a little bit. What components of the system do I see is working? The first thing is the system needs to always be on. Even if you have positions that are full, even if you have no positions, the system always needs to be on, and you need to be building a waiting list. Okay.
Yeah. People get confused. They take hiring and confuse it with recruiting. And you don't always have to be hiring, but you really always, what you're suggesting is you always need to be recruiting.
I love that distinction, Tom. Like recruiting versus adding people to your team. Yes, you always need to be looking for really good talent. We see this all the time where people are hesitant to build a waiting list, and you would be shocked when you look at the data of when we call down our waiting list for our clients. Over half, it only takes a waiting list of 3 people to get someone to say yes. If you have a waiting list of 10 people, 5 of them will say yes. It's about a 50% uptake rate. And it's a very okay thing to do when you're holding a hiring process to say, Tom, it was awesome meeting you. You're a great applicant. Unfortunately, we don't have an open position right now, but we are growing constantly. And is it okay with you when we do have an open position if I reach out?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to say as a candidate in that instance?
Sounds like an awesome place to work, because most people are trying to get me to start that day. So if you've got a waiting list, obviously a lot of people want to work for you.
100%. And now you, as a person who's looking for work, if you applied, all of a sudden, where previously you would have got declined because you're not the number 1 best candidate out of the people, you're maybe the number 2 or 3, but you're probably still pretty good. You now have this little thing in your pocket that you say, I would have loved that job right away, but now I have a little bit more peace of mind. And when they do call, I'll take the call. So everyone leaves a lot happier, and everyone leaves with an asset, with something versus nothing. The other thing about having a waiting list is, and this sounds a little crass, but I'll just say it. If you have 5, 15, 25, 30 technicians on your team, and you have a waiting list of really good people, there's 2 things that happen. Thing number 1 is the team knows that you're having interviews every week. Mm-hmm. And it's not, oh my gosh, they're going to kick me out. They're saying, wow, this is a really good place to work. Tom does do a great job running this business. There are a lot of people that want my job. And the other thing is, if they're not performing, then you have a way where you're not beholden to that employee or that team member. You can replace them if need be.
Your hands aren't tied. You don't have to hold your nose and look the other way when you really should be making a staffing change.
I'm sure you can think of, I'm sure all of us here and you can think of numerous examples where you're like, would I hire this team member today? Knowing what I know right now, would I hire them again? If the answer is no,
then maybe you should replace them now. And in the house cleaning industry, it's not uncommon for someone to decide that they just don't want to work for your company anymore and just don't show up that day with no notice or anything else. And if you're starting out at 0, that can be a very uncomfortable thing. But if you've got, people on the waiting list, you're in a much better position to manage it.
100%. And we have a lot of home cleaning clients. It's a difficult industry, and it can be the types of hiring systems you need to run can differ greatly by geography, region, type of home cleaning services you have. And so it's really important that you build that system in a way that's tailored to how you operate your business, because we see a lot of differentiation by business type and region.
So it's easy to say that you should always be recruiting, I've been doing this for a while, and, I remember the day when recruiting was running classified ads in the local newspaper.
Yeah.
And people would come into your office and fill out paper applications, and you'd have to keep up with those pieces of paper. And recruiting and interviewing was just a pain,
Mhm. Yeah.
and part of this, hey, it's just 2025, right? So speak a little bit about the system in the standpoint of, how easy or hard is it to continue, this recruiting process going on. You hated doing it, right? So you never did it back when you were doing it with the classifieds and pieces of paper. Um,
You were hoping there was a good referral that would just make it so you didn't actually have to do the process.
but you can do it continuously now without very much time or treasure, right?
100%. Now, is it easy? No, but can you set up a system to do it? Yeah. So we talked about always having a system that's on. Okay. Well, the key part of the system and the key challenging part of the system is, where do you find the people that flow into the system? Because once you've built a system that's on, and we can talk about some of the mechanics of how that works, but the biggest dependency in what we see is getting a high volume of good people into your hiring funnel, as we call it. And the easiest proxy that all of us entrepreneurs know is a sales and marketing funnel. Good. And I think like people have heard this all the time, and it's fully agreed upon. Hiring and recruiting is very similar to marketing and sales. And so how do we have a system that has those classified ads up in a way that's compelling, constantly on, constantly being refreshed? And so the first thing, before we even talk about where you find the people, is how you message and how you communicate to them. You need to make sure that what you're advertising is a true job advertisement for the role and for your business, and not a job description. And this is one of the number one challenges that we see. It's like, I forget where I was, Tom, but I recently was talking. It wasn't a huge room. It was like maybe 50, 75 people. And I was like, okay, all entrepreneurs, all home service business owners, raise your hand if you've looked for a job recently. There was maybe one hand up. Okay. None of us here have looked for a job recently because we've been hiring. We've been running our businesses. When you're looking for a job, you don't necessarily feel awesome about yourself. So when we're doing a job ad, we need to think about the psychology of the job seeker. And what we've seen that works best after A/B testing job ad types across multiple platforms and multiple companies is the job copy needs to be about you. The advertisement needs to be about you, the job seeker.
Mm-hmm.
You are hardworking. You want a career, not just a job. You want to join a team that gives you opportunities and cares about you. You want to earn X a week. And so if you create a job ad that has you, and talks about how this person is going to grow with you, sees themselves in a positive light, sees themselves earning $1,200 a week, $1,000 a week, whatever they can earn at your business, all of a sudden your job ad stands out. And the really great candidates that are looking for that career, are looking to join a team, are looking to work hard, will say, I want to work at Tom's company because he knows, he seems to know who I am, versus I don't want to work at Dan's company, who said, you got to be able to carry a vacuum backpack, or you got to be able to carry X, Y, and Z. That's not inspiring. That doesn't make you want to jump. That makes you say, oh, another sentence.
Do you recommend, I mean, I get the sales part definitely, but do you recommend putting some of the requirements in the ad, or do you save that for like the interview process?
Really good question. I do like to put core requirements in the ad and in the application process. So typically in a job ad, we make sure the title, and you got to A/B test what works. You got to mix it up. Some of the best titles include salary, location, etc., or just title. But typically I like to have a job title. And then I like to have a section at the very top that clearly states pay and who you are, with a lot of use statements, who we are about the company, and then what you'll do each day. And within the what you'll do each day, we put in requirements often. These are the working hours. This is the type of work you'll do, because we also don't want to just paint this unclear picture, it's like, no, you will have to meet these requirements, but we put that near the bottom so that once they read and are engaged, they'll start to understand.
And if there's something that's a deal killer for a candidate, then they're not going to be wasting their time or yours, I guess.
Exactly. One thing, Tom, that you mentioned about these requirements that's really important is people don't really read job ads in their entirety. And I know that for a fact because we put specific links on job ads and we can track who clicks those links. And it's not a super high percentage. But we do make sure that when everyone applies, those requirements are reiterated again. And we communicate and collect that information. One thing that we found is overall across trades, over 92% of applications are done on mobile devices. And it's even higher in home cleaning. It's over 96%. And
96%. So for all practical purposes, almost all of them.
Almost all of them. And, that's just for our own clients. So maybe we do a lot of SMS texting, et cetera, to get people. We also email though, but people are applying on their phones. And so we need to know that. Like, it's hard to scroll through a really long job ad on your phone. It's hard to look at a company website that's not mobile optimized on your phone. It's hard to fill out a form on your phone that's not mobile optimized. So we need to meet candidates where they're at and know that they are going to apply on their phone. What's the headline? What's the first sentence of the job ad? What are the first few questions in an application process? What are the first few sentences in a follow-up email or text? They're going to be doing it on their phone, so we need to meet them where they're at.
Wow. I mean, I would have easily, said, yeah, the majority of them on their phone, but 96% is a really, really big number. 4% are doing it, I guess, on a tablet or laptop or something.
Yeah, I know. I feel it like dates me because I only do certain things are like computer tasks. And I would have assumed that applying for a job is a computer task, but it's just not. That's just not the way the world works. And so it's interesting to look at the data and change how we view some of these things.
You've mentioned a few times A/B testing.
Yeah.
So conceptually, I think, we get what you're talking about, but, talking about and doing it are two different things. In practice, how do you actually do A/B testing?
Yeah. There's really, really complicated ways in marketing to do A/B testing. I'm sure all of us have seen examples from, landing page companies, website companies, et cetera, email marketing companies. We start and we do it very simply. So we want to make sure that every job ad we post performs top of market. And the way we do that is we'll put multiple job ads up. And first, we'll change titles. So same exact job ad body, but the title might say cleaning technician for title A. And title B might say cleaning technician, $800 to $1,200 a week. Right? Okay. And what we can see, we'll make sure the spend's exactly the same. We'll make sure the copy under that's exactly the same. And what we'll see is the funnel metrics on it. So when I say funnel metrics, what I mean is how many people click the ad. Of those people that click the ad, how many people apply? Of those people that apply, how many people take the next step? In our instance, it's to take a HireBus assessment. Out of those people that take the HireBus assessment, how many that are invited to interview, schedule, et cetera, and we'll do the funnel metrics. And what's a little tricky with A/B testing is you can do job ad copy and you can get a lot of clicks, but your application rate might be lower. So the example I gave, cleaning technician for job ad A, cleaning technician, $800 to $1,200 a week. We might get more clicks on $800 to $1,200 a week, but then we actually might get lower applications when they look at the job ad because maybe we're communicating a value that isn't aligned with what our company's offering. Maybe it's only about pay when they dig in, they see that the pay is actually inaccurate or something. So what we want to do is we want to optimize for really good cost per applicant and eventually really good cost per interview and eventually really good cost per hire. And so we'll take the full funnel metrics when we get enough data and say, job ad A is actually winning. Now, that's the title that's winning. Let's go into the body. What is the first sentence? Let's change that A/B test and see what wins. Oh, the opening sentence on job ad B is winning. Great. Now let's A/B test some other components of the ad. But we always start with title, body, and then we'll do different things like change the city or town. You might change the way we're listing salary, but that's the way we A/B test. Just try to change one factor at a time and look at the metrics and see how it performs.
So when you find something that works and for like one company or one market, does it change? So you mentioned like company values, and I think that you mentioned like city market as well. If I go from one city to another city, could something that works in Denver maybe not work in Charleston?
Yeah. And it's been really interesting, Tom, to see some of the trends, because you would assume something that works somewhere would work nationwide. And I will say the majority of trends you learn are broad sweeping. But sometimes certain things just don't work in some markets where they work well in others. So a concrete example is including pay in the job ad title. If I'm posting a job ad, if you're like, Dan, you got to post a job ad in Phoenix, Arizona, I will start 100% and I will include the hourly rate in there.
Okay.
If you ask me to post a job ad in Philadelphia right now, I would not. And why? The only reason I know is because I've tried it and I've tested it. And it's really interesting because I have different hypotheses about why, but ultimately until you A/B test, you don't really know. And maybe in 6 months from now, it'll flip. And in Phoenix, you won't need to, it will not benefit you to post the hourly rate. And in Philly, it will, but without testing, we don't know.
So when you say it won't work, this is the part that I've always wondered, if I'm Walmart, I could, in hiring the number of people that they hire, I've got these two ads, and if this one performs, 0.1% better than the other one, that could be a whole bunch of, money to them.
Yeah.
But if I'm running a house cleaning company in Denver and this ad's 0.1% better than the other one, does it really matter in the whole scheme of things? Probably not. So is the difference meaningful enough in the A/B testing where it would even create, a meaningful amount of value or difference for a small company?
I think it all depends is the answer. So in the example that you gave, when the A/B test is 0.1% difference, no. When you're hiring 10 people a year, 0.1%, that's, 0.1 people different or whatever it is. Someone's got to check my math. But what we often see is the results are a fair bit more dramatic. So some good benchmarks for folks to think about. And, this is a broad nationwide average. So in your market, it might be a little different. But if you're hosting a job ad on a platform like Indeed or ZipRecruiter, a good cost per applicant for a cleaning technician is anything under $1.25.
Okay.
Per applicant. And
does that vary by market?
It varies by market, but it's pretty stable for cleaning technicians. I will say in more rural areas is what we're seeing is it can get up to $3 per applicant. So if you're running a cleaning business that's got a little bit more of a rural market, the cost per applicant tends to be a little bit higher, which is actually inverted for sales reps. So it also differs by role as well. What I was saying, Tom, is the difference in an A/B test and a job ad can be pretty material. A specific client that I'm thinking of in Arizona, when we did the including the hourly rate in the job ad and not, they were getting 75 cents per candidate with the hourly rate, and it got up to $2.50 a candidate for not including the hourly rate on the job ads. And if you're bringing in 300 candidates a month, that adds up. So it can be pretty material, the A/B testing and impact of that.
So when you say candidate, is that like somebody just filling out an application or somebody who's actually qualified for the position?
Someone that's filling out an application.
Okay.
In some just typical numbers that we see, about 254 candidates per one really, really, really strong hire.
So if you're, a $1.25 a job, you're pushing $300, I guess, to find that one hire.
Exactly. And that's if you're doing paid ads on like a ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn or some of these other job boards. There's obviously additional ways to get candidates. Craigslist, WhatsApp is growing, Facebook groups, etc. But if you want to use funnel metrics for a paid job ad platform, you can figure $300-ish of ad spend to get one really good hire.
Are there ways of designing ads that maybe fewer people in total like apply to it, but the ones that you're getting are of higher quality?
It's a great question, Tom, and there's a really delicate balance there. So on some of these platforms, like an Indeed or a ZipRecruiter, you can include specific qualification questions that are yes, no, and if the candidate doesn't meet it, then they can't apply. And so you can often add more friction, if you will, to the job ad by including those required questions, required skills, required experience. But it does come at a price, because you'll have ultimately less candidates. And what we see is often a little bit of a numbers game, specifically in home cleaning, where you do typically want pretty high volume because of what you mentioned earlier. It can be a little bit of a higher turnover position. It is something that you typically want to build a waiting list. So there's a balance that you need to strike there, where you're not having too much friction in your funnel, but you're also not just letting everyone flow in who lives miles and miles away and doesn't have a driver's license and will no show you on interviews. You want to have that balance, just like a sales funnel.
But if you're going to get like the awesome candidates, you're just going to have to get a bunch of them that really aren't that great, I guess, is the short answer. You can't create so much friction to scare the bad people off. Nobody will want to apply to your job.
Yeah. And I think just bluntly, on certain platforms like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, what we've seen is the most successful approach is a higher volume approach. Mm-hmm. ZipRecruiter and Indeed, both, that's where a lot of job seekers live. There's a lot of good candidates on there, but there's a lot of candidates that aren't a right fit for you. And so with those platforms specifically, you're probably going to need more candidates that filter down to, or that funnel down over time after interviews, screening, et cetera, to finalists. Whereas what we've seen for more organic channels, if you're posting in Facebook groups, if you're sending out links to folks obviously that's going to be warmer. And so it's less people, but they're more qualified. Just like marketing and sales, like referrals are going to have a really strong sales network in, whereas paid ads are going to have a steeper funnel in.
Yeah. As far as, I guess, ZipRecruiter and Indeed's concerned, I mean, they're very successful companies. They make a lot of money. They know what they're doing. So I guess their whole platform is designed in a way to encourage more applicants. So they don't want to give you the ability to filter out just a small set of candidates, because it's their bottom line.
That's 100% right. And a few notes, like the word filter in hiring is just kind of like a no word. We want to always prioritize. I know I said it earlier, but we want to prioritize candidates.
That's true.
The other thing that's interesting about that we've noticed about Indeed is we've seen a pretty steady climb over the last year in what Indeed suggests should be the spend for a particular role. Mm-hmm. That's really ramped up. It's almost doubled in the last year. When you go to a role in a market, they give a recommended spend. And that's not always, you don't always need to do the recommended spend. Often spending below and having really good job ad copy and refreshing those job ads frequently can help you win. So, if you're looking to post a job ad on Indeed and it says, hey, we recommend you spend $56 a day. What I might do if I was in your shoes is start with $5 a day. $10 a day.
So over the last year, you've seen that spend recommendation double?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the same in every market and every position, but net, yeah.
The job market's been tight for a while. I mean, one of the things that we track from time to time here in Smart Business Moves is like the JOLTS report, the number of job openings to candidates. And I guess a year or so ago, there were like 2 job openings for every candidate, and that's just general, and even tighter for like service businesses that we're staffing for. Those numbers have eased up a bit. I mean, they're still tight historically, but the job market hasn't gotten any tougher over the last year. I wonder why their rates have doubled.
I don't know the answer to that, Tom. I think one thing we've seen is just a little bit of change in the way that they price their services. So, first of all, not all markets allow for free job posting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time last year, every market, at least that we were in, allowed for free job posting. Now there's certain minimums required to post in certain cities and for certain titles. So I think there's just a little bit more of like a monetization on the app, which is fair and understandable that the application would want to do that. The second piece is a change in pricing and in how Indeed used to do a system where like you could pay per day or you could pay per applicant. So prior, you could post a job ad and you could choose. I either want to pay X per day and just see what happens, or I could pay $20 per strong candidate. And when those candidates applied in the second way, the per candidate, they would apply, and then you, the hiring manager, would review them. And if you approve them, you would pay $20, and if you decline them, you would pay nothing.
Okay.
And I don't know for certain, but I would assume that this pricing model wasn't working out the way that they wanted because they got rid of it. But after that change, we saw a change, and after they removed that pricing model, we saw a change in how the price per day was working. And so it's just like everything. It's just like paid ads on Facebook. You got to stay up with the changes in the algorithm. It's just, you got to stay up with how these platforms work if you want to perform well on them.
So you mentioned earlier that, you can certainly recruit through Indeed and ZipRecruiter and some of these other platforms. They aren't necessarily the best candidates. If you can get candidates through referrals, for instance, that oftentimes they're higher quality candidates, and it's a easier and more economical way, I guess, to hire people into your organization. Do you have any more thoughts on that? And then are there other techniques that companies can consider to find candidates other than going the Indeed route?
Yeah, 100%, Tom. Again, I always just try to, whenever I'm trying to solve a problem in hiring and recruiting, I just think back to like sales and marketing. It's like when we're starting our businesses, the best customers at first are people in our networks, people we know. They're typically the best customers. They're typically the most affordable to acquire, and they're typically the stickiest. They stay the longest. The challenge with people is that there's only so many of them. It's hard to scale that.
At some point, you run out of friends and family, right?
Yeah, and they're like, I don't need my house cleaned again. And so that's the same with hiring. And so, I always want folks to start with their networks with warm referrals for hiring. Just like we talked about with sales and marketing, those people are the warmest. They know you the best. They're typically the cheapest to acquire. I know that's like a little bit crass to think about, but that you don't have to spend on Indeed, right? And so how do we do that? Well, there's got to be a system for how you can communicate with people in your network and make them engaged. In the same way that our job ads, we want to say, you are hardworking. You want to be a part of a great team. You. I would encourage everyone to go on Vistaprint or something, make a business card that says something like, you deserve to be on a great team. You're awesome. We want you. And on the back of that business card, you should have a QR code to your careers page or to a Google form where people can apply, however you're collecting applications. And when you're out in your neighborhood and you give this to your teams as well, you say, and you see someone who would just be great at your company, you just say, hey, thanks for providing such great service today. I'm sure you're not looking for work, but if the off chance that you are, my team is always hiring and we need great people like you. Take this card. You're awesome. How many times do you think that's happened to that awesome person?
Yeah. You always want to be opportunistic is where be looking for the opportunities. You run into people who provide awesome service, hit them up. You just never know. That's really good advice.
And give those cards to everyone on your team now and have a little retention bonus when someone they recruit in stays for 6 months. Now all of a sudden you've multiplied your efforts by quite a bit and the referral network grows. That's just one technique, but I think it's a pretty powerful one that can be stood up with a few hours of work and, print out some business cards and hand them to your team at the next team meeting.
Can social media be a useful part of your recruiting process?
Oh, I would say it's like not just useful, but critical. There's a lot of benefits to promoting open positions on social media, not just recruiting, but also sales and marketing itself. One really interesting way to do it is you probably have followers on different social platforms, even on your email platform, where you could say, hey, we're ramping up for spring season and we're looking for really great technicians. A few things that are important about working at, Tom's company is that you are organized, you're driven towards career goals, blah, 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 all the things that are awesome about working for you. And if you send that out to your network, that does a few things. Thing number one, people say, ooh, I like doing things for my friends. I'll share this with them and maybe they'll get a job. Thing number two, if your customers see it, and they see that the people that work for your company are clean, reliable, organized, dependable, career-oriented, they're going to say, that's why I love working with Tom's company, because he has such great people. That's right. I do need that service again. And so hiring in social platforms is just like a really good strategy. Not only does it find good people, but it builds trust within your client base. One of the best campaigns I've seen, Tom, was an email campaign sent to a client list that just was like, hey, we've got a role opening. Here's the description. Again, talk all the positive things. Does anyone here know anyone that might fit that role? And if so, could you refer them here? We'd love to offer you blah, blah, blah if you refer. And it actually led to, it helped and it generated candidates, but it led to a ton of sales.
Sure. You're winning from a customer standpoint, a prospective customer standpoint. And like on your Facebook page, you've at least the people who are your team members typically follow that, and maybe their friends follow that too. And I've seen some companies have a lot of success by creating just a really awesome brand in terms of we're fun and this is just everybody's having a great time working here. There was a concept called passive candidates. They're not even actively. You get somebody from Indeed, right? They're either unemployed or they're actively needing another job. But there's people that are just thumbing through Instagram or whatever, and they keep seeing these pictures of Dan's cleaning service, and everybody looks like they're having such a great time. Those people might want to just reach out and say, hey, you get a job opening, let me know. I want to have fun like that too.
You nailed it. Like there's active marketing and interruption marketing. And interruption marketing is often best for job seekers because, who would you rather employ? Someone who's been laid off or someone who's got a job, but they're just not at the right company for them?
Right.
I think
they're not even looking for a job, but they see your place as an awesome place to work. Exactly. People oftentimes will make the statement, you just can't find anybody that wants to work. Mm-hmm. And more times than not, what's really happening is nobody wants to work for you.
I think we've all running businesses, like hearing that, I laugh, but I also, there's some pain in my laugh because when looking in the mirror, there's been times when I've had to reflect and say like, yeah, maybe people don't want to work for me the way I'm running this business right now. How can I change that? How can I create a culture? How can I communicate that culture to people so that I can grow my team sustainably in a way that people stay and people want to work with me?
So that's a deeper discussion, I guess, but certainly not to be overlooked. If you're having a hard time attracting the right people, maybe I do need to look in the mirror and saying, well, what do I need to do here to make this a better place to work? And it's a lot more complicated than just pay, isn't it?
It's more complicated than pay. And there's a lot of factors that we see too. One of the challenges is this idea of, is there someone out there that's just a perfect fit that's plug and play into my business? I believe so for most roles, unless you create kind of a crazy role that doesn't exist yet. Now, maybe a more thoughtful question for a business owner like us is, how can I create a role in supporting training materials so that I could bring in more people that would be successful?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can change that equation a little bit and have it be less about finding that perfect match to this role, and have it be a little bit more about how can I blend that and have a lot of people, and not lower my standards, right? But have good people that work hard, that are skilled, that if they come into my system, they can excel. That's the winning formula. And so it requires balance, just like anything. You need to have really good recruiting efforts with high standards to bring in good people. But you also, when you bring someone in, you need to have really good onboarding processes, really good systems, really good training processes, so that you're not reliant on a unicorn in order to have them fit and stay. You have a system that's repeatable and can be done by multiple people in order to have sustainability in your business. What's your onboarding look like? What are your SOPs? What's the training process? What's the growth trajectory in your business? If someone joins and they're there for 2 years, do they have upward mobility, or do they want to leave somewhere else? These are all questions that are just super important to reflect on in order to attract and retain good people.
So you hire somebody, go through everything that you have to go through to make somebody a job offer, and you hire them. You really, aren't done with anything, right? You're just getting started.
Yeah.
Do you track in HireBus and all the metrics that you do, the results after the hire, what the retention rate is after 30 days, 90 days, so forth?
We do. I'll say, Tom, it's a little bit more difficult just because we're reliant on reporting from other people. Whereas like in the software, I can tell if someone moves from stage A to stage B.
You know what happens with that 100% to the point that they're hired. Then it gets a little.
It's a little more difficult. So there's some like reporting challenges there, but I can share some of the insights that we have. The first 90 days are critical. If you can get someone, especially in home cleaning, to stay for 90 days, they're much more likely to stay for a longer term. Now, I don't have like tons of longitudinal data on that. Our business has been around for a little over a year and a half. So I don't have like 5 years of data on that, but the first 90 days are really critical. And qualitatively, what we've seen is a really good structured onboarding flow where there's milestones that a manager can have check-ins with the new employee, milestones where there's celebrations of the new employee, milestones where there's rewards for the new employees, is where we've seen the best results. I think Liz actually has a really good system for this, where at certain day marks, you might send them their favorite candy or a gift card or whatever. And at certain day marks, there's also check-ins. So I'm sure Liz has talked about that here, but having a calendar and a structure in those first 90 days is critical for getting someone to stay and feel comfortable and feel successful.
So you want to create, a really strong brand. You want to like attract quality people and have ads that are appealing to them. That's great. So when you hire them, you have to deliver the product to them. You need to make sure you're setting the expectation high to get the candidate. You need to meet that expectation to keep the candidate is what I'm hearing.
100%. And I want to make sure it's not too much HireBus stuff, but one thing we do when we onboard someone is we actually look at their website and we talk about what makes them unique and their brand voice. And I was recently talking with someone who has a really like professional customer service oriented brand. It's very like soft colors, a lot of pictures of clients on the website, right? But the job ad they wanted was like really bold and in your face and almost aggressive, and it's for a sales position. Yeah. And in the call, I was like, I don't think these things line up. What if we put out this bold job ad and they come and then everyone in the business is just like, not hyper aggressive? That's going to be a mismatch. We're not communicating right what our culture is. Yeah. So it's really important. That's why we collect core values. That's why we collect those things, because like whatever you put out as your ad needs to be what, when they look at your website, it is. It needs to be what they experience when they come in for an interview. It needs to be what they experience when they go onboarding, right? And that through line is so important to create stability and consistency for employees.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same recipe. There's so many overlaps with like sales for customers and in the recruiting process. You get unhappy customers. The expectations were not in alignment. You have fruit. Yeah, we have fruit. And you show up with apples and they were expecting oranges, Yeah. And hiring can be the same way. And you can create an expectation in your recruiting process that's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's like, wait a minute, we're cleaning homes. This is hard work. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah. All you talked about was the team staff parties, et cetera. You didn't talk about that, we're making things beautiful, and that takes hard work.
So I guess you would recommend that you maybe would want to do a little more hard work up front and, hire the right people as opposed to making promises that you can't keep. Okay, I hired somebody, but they're going out the back door real quick.
Yeah, totally, Tom. And I think that's part of the whole logic and thought process behind like you are hardworking. You are a team player. You want something that's a career, not just a job. If you can articulate what that you statements are that truly align with your culture, and the we statements, we are a growing team. We help each other when things are hard. I'm just making these up right now, but that's how you can kind of set the tone and set the expectations for what this will be.
Okay. So, I know going into this, you were very mindful of leading with value, and we just wanted to share useful information. And you certainly have done that, but I'm kind of excited about HireBus. Could we take a few minutes and you maybe tell us a little bit about what HireBus is, how it works, and roll that into everything that we've discussed here? So if anybody who's watching wants to know more about best practices for recruiting and hiring, to how they could use HireBus as part of that system, I think it would be useful to share something about that.
Yeah, Tom, I'm more than happy to. So I can share a little bit about how HireBus works and what the problem is that we solve. And if anyone's interested in learning more about HireBus, you can go to hirebus.com. And we also offer a hiring audit, where what we do is we'll just talk about your goals for the year, understand what a hiring plan would need to be in order to hit those goals, so we can help map that strategic planning out with you. And you can schedule one of those here at our website if you click start hiring, or you can go to hirebus.com/hiring-audit. But what we can get
hiring audit, that's interesting. I've never heard of that though. And that's no obligation. That's just part of
no cost, 30-minute discovery call. And basically what we do in that call is we talk about what are your annual growth goals, talk about a little bit of historical data, like, what's your average revenue per head, et cetera. Because what we'll often see, and we saw this a lot in the coaching business overall too, and some of the reason we started this company was, I'm at 1 million today, and I want to get to 1.5. Okay, well, what will it take to do that? Well, okay, I'm at 1 million right now, and I have 12 technicians. Okay, so you're at about 80,000 in revenue per head, and you want to get 500,000 more in revenue. So we're gonna need to hire more people. Okay. Well, how many technicians leave each year? What's your average turnover? Well, let's see. I lost 4 technicians last year. So, we're at a 33% turnover rate each year. Okay. So in order to get those 6 more technicians you'll need in order to get to 1.5 million with a 33% turnover, we're going to need to build a system that can bring on 9. Because how many times when we're running our businesses, do we have a time of year where crap, we could produce that big contract, we don't have enough people. Mm-hmm. Or, I really want to hit 1.5 million, but Tina just left. Now I'm only going to hit 1.2. And so if we can create a more compelling and comprehensive plan that shows what we'll actually need in order to deliver on the production goals that we have, then we can figure out what the best path forward is. And sometimes we do these hiring audits, these calls, and it's like, you don't need more people. You need to be more efficient with the existing people, or you don't need more technicians. You need a manager to manage them so that you can go sell or work on systems, right? And so it's kind of a useful exercise to take your goals and map them to production or sales or management or marketing needs that you might have to grow your business.
You have a congruent plan. You know, we've done exercises. We've done coaching and training for, done a lot of things in in the house cleaning world. And so often you go through that process, it's like, wow, you know, maybe I need to adjust that revenue because there's no way that, you know, we want to build a workforce that big. Or conversely, it's like, you know, we can really generate a ton more revenue with the people that we have. And it shifts your strategy in a meaningful way just by taking a half hour and looking at those numbers.
100%, Tom. I mean, I found it incredibly almost freeing in a way to be like, oh, if I want to do this, then these are the unit economics of getting there. Now I have clarity if I can actually do it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's less about, are we going to hit that number? And more about, I'm going to hit that number, or I'm going to hit this number because I actually know how it breaks down on a per team member basis, or a per lead basis, or a per ad spend basis, right? Like you can do your funnel metrics for marketing, sales.
You have a plan, you know what you need to do to make it happen rather than keeping your fingers crossed and hoping you get lucky.
100%. So just a quick about HireBus, how it works. So we want you to run your business. And so we do everything except make the final decision. We write job ads for you. We create careers pages for you and host them. We manage and post the job ads on various platforms. We nurture candidates so that they perform all of our application steps. We have every candidate take our HireBus assessment, which gives them a score out of 10 for different roles in a home service business. We actually hold phone screens for candidates ourselves. So you don't do an initial phone screen. We do the initial phone screen of candidates. And then we place those candidates that meet your application requirements, have scored high in HireBus, have been reviewed by a recruiter and performed on a phone screen. And then we put them on your calendar for a final interview. And we run that 365 days a year. So
you're always recruiting.
Always recruiting. Even if you're not always hiring. I'm stealing that from you, Tom. Even if you're not always hiring, you're always recruiting. I love that distinction. I think that's so well said.
And you're able to always recruit without having to have a full-time person doing it. I mean, you can automate. You're automating the recruiting process.
Exactly. 100%.
This is brilliant. I love it. So do you currently work with some house cleaning companies now?
Yeah, many. We have a lot of house cleaning clients. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. And, you know, there's really no reason for anybody who's running house clean business not to always be recruiting, but you want to do it in a way where you're not sucking up a lot of time and treasure doing it if you're really don't have that immediate need to fill that position. It's just psychologically it's hard to do it, but you can automate the process. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where, you know, we have a lot of home cleaning clients that have, you know, we have some that are always hiring in high volumes. We have some that are a little more seasonal, right? That have spikes and lulls. And what's cool about it is it's a lever. You can ramp it up if you want to increase volume. You can lower it down if you want it to trickle, but you need a system. You need a system that's always recruiting, not necessarily always hiring, but always recruiting. Dan, this was fun. It was a pleasure meeting you. Welcome to first time guest on Smart Business Moves. Certainly hope not to be the last. Hope to see you in person sometime.
Likewise, Tom. This has been awesome. Thanks for the time and a great conversation. And yeah, we'll have to connect in person soon.
We are at the top of the hour though, so we're going to go ahead and call this a wrap. Thanks again, Dan. We'll be back next week, 5 o'clock Eastern, Smart Business Moves. Till then, everybody take care. Bye-bye.